سال کے عرصے میں مورخین کہتے ہیں کہ کے نتیجے میں مصر فتح ہوا، شام فتح ہوا وغیرہ وغیرہ، یہاں تک کہ تیسرے خلیفہ راشد حضرت عثمان رضی اللہ تعالیٰ عنہ کے زمانے میں اسلامی خلافت یا اسلامی حکومت 3 بر اعظموں پر پھیل چکی تھی۔ ایشیا میں بھی تھی اور افریقہ میں بھی تھی، اور یورپ کا بھی ایک حصہ خلافت کے تابع آ چکا تھا۔ اس وقت بعض مسلمانوں نے سمجھا کہ یہ ساری فتوحات جو ہو رہی ہیں یہ کسی ہماری خوبی کے نتیجے میں ہیں، حالانکہ یہ ساری برکتیں رسول کریم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم اور خلافت کی برکات کے ساتھ چل رہی تھی۔ تو انہوں نے حضرت عثمان کے خلاف منصوبے بنانے شروع کیے، فساد کرنے شروع کیے، سازشیں شروع کیں، اور حضرت عثمان سے یہ کہا کہ آپ خلافت کو چھوڑ دیں اور دستبردار ہو جائیں، ورنہ ہم آپ کو قتل کر دیں گے۔ حضرت عثمان نے فرمایا کہ یہ تو قمیص ہے جو خدا نے مجھے پہنائی اور میں ہرگز اس کو نہیں اتاروں گا، اور اگر آج تم نے مجھے قتل کر دیا تو یاد رکھو کہ میرے بعد نہ تم میں کبھی اتحاد قائم رہے گا، نہ تم ایک ساتھ نماز پڑھ سکو گے، اور نہ تم کبھی اکٹھے ہو کر خدا کی راہ میں جنگ کر سکو گے۔ حضرت عثمان نے واضح طور پر یہ متنبع کر دیا کہ خلافت کے بغیر یہ ساری نعمتیں نہیں مل سکتی، لیکن منافقین کو اور مفسدین کو سمجھ نہیں آئی، اور انہیں حضرت عثمان کو بھی شہید کر دیا، پھر حضرت علی کو بھی شہید کر دیا۔ تو اس کے نتیجے میں مسلمانوں کی وحدت، وہ یونٹی ختم ہو گئی، اور قریباً 1300 سال تک مسلمان فرقوں میں تقسیم ہوتے چلے گئے۔ آپ حیران ہوں گے کہ آپ تو اپنے مشہور حدیث آپ نے سنی ہوئی ہے کہ 72 فرقے ہیں یا 73 فرقے، یا 73 فرقے نہیں ہیں، یہ سینکڑوں فرقے ہیں۔ بے شمار فرقے پیدا ہوئے اور مر گئے، ختم ہو گئے۔ بے شمار چھوٹے چھوٹے وجود میں آئے گروپ پر ختم ہو گئے۔ یہ بڑے بڑے 73 فرقے ہیں، انہیں 73 فرقہ، اس میں 73واں فرقہ، اس میں جماعت احمدیہ ہے، ورنہ سینکڑوں کی تعداد میں یہ فرقے موجود ہیں۔ اور پھر یہ وقت نہیں آیا کہ مسلمان ایک ہاتھ پر اکٹھے ہوں اور ایک امام کی امامت میں نماز پڑھیں۔ پھر اللہ تعالیٰ نے فضل فرمایا اور حضرت مسیح موعود علیہ الصلوۃ والسلام کے طفیل وہ خلافت علی منہاج النبوت کی نعمت ہمیں دوبارہ عطا کی، جو ساری دنیا
At the Asr namaz, Hazur would lead any nikah sermons, and then there would be funeral prayers as well, after which the funerals would be buried in Masjid Aqsa. We would also be able to accompany Hazur. So in this way, we were able to spend many different occasions and time with Hazur. We were able to write letters consistently every week to Hazur, every week, and that's how we established a relationship with him. And we say the same thing to our children, that they should also establish a relationship with Khilafat through letters. And the prayers that we ever requested from Huzur, those we saw fulfilled with our own eyes in front of us. Huzur would do many different activities and engage in many different activities in Rabwa. He would go to weddings, he would go to different tournaments, different events that the Jamaat was holding. Nasir tournament was a tournament that was held at that time in different colleges. So he attended various events from tarbiti classes and camps and so on. Huzur was the one who was going to initiate, to open that event and to close it. And he liked to participate in the tarbiti classes and camps for the Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya events. I was able to see over and over the different events that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih attended, and I was very grateful for that. Then we go to 1974. There was a plan at Rabwa railway station to create some chaos. And then after that, Ahmadi households were set to fire. And many groups came out against Ahmadiyyat, and many Ahmadis were martyred. Shops were burned. This was all planned, and this was all very painful for Khilafat. And we would see that when Huzur would come for his Friday sermon, we would see that he did not sleep because his eyes were red, and we could see that he didn't even have enough time to tie his turban properly because he was crying in prayer all night. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, who was private secretary at the time, told me this incident afterwards. He said that Huzur was sitting in his office when a message came from Gujranwala that, please Huzur, pray for us. All of us Ahmadis are gathered in one place in the city, and we are surrounded at all four sides by the enemy, and they are here to kill us. Huzur started to pray and prayed for a very long time. In the meantime, another phone call from the same Amir in Gujranwala came, and he said that the enemies have now started to attack and they've come closer to the mosque. Please, Huzur, pray more. Huzur started to pray more, and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, he says that right where Huzur was sitting, he started to pray profusely. And in a little bit more time, Amir Sahib called again from Gujranwala and said, please convey our final salam to Huzur. The enemy is very close to us and we will not survive. We have no way to survive except through the prayers of Khilafat. After this, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib said that Huzur secluded himself in the next room and he went into prostration, and he only raised his head. He only raised his head when he got the next phone call in which he was informed that the army had arrived and that the Ahmadis had been saved. This is the way that Khilafat protects Ahmadis and brings them from a state of fear into a state of peace and gives them new life. This was also the time during which the Ahmadiyya community was deemed as non-Muslim, and that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih was invited into the National Assembly to speak on behalf of the Ahmadis. Huzur attended this assembly and said very, very obscure and confusing statements. Nonetheless, Huzur kept listening, and then he answered their questions. This was all decided on the 7th of September. Now the whole Jamaat was very worried that they were deemed as non-Muslim. Okay. So there was no way that the Ahmadiyya members would accept being deemed as non-Muslim. So one day, it was Friday, and Huzur came on that Friday and said, whoever brought his faith from any market in Anarkali can leave. But you are being called Muslim from the heavens, and you have nothing to worry about because Allah the Almighty is testifying to you being Muslim. And this message was sent all across Pakistan and to all the members of the community across the world. And this was announced everywhere, that if you have bought your faith from some shop, then you should be worried. But if your faith comes from God, then you have nothing to be worried about. This was a very, very inspiring and motivating message. And the community rose up once more, and all the worries disappeared. When Huzur was questioned in the assembly, he timed many hours he was questioned. And Huzur said that while I was in the assembly and I was being questioned, angels were standing around me and they were helping me answer those questions. 72 hours and 10 minutes. At that same time, Huzur was told by God Almighty to expand the household. This meant that many people were going to come and enter Ahmadiyyat. So it was commanded that we expand our community, we make room for them, and we expand the enterprise of Ahmadiyyat. I heard this revelation from the words of the third Khalifa many times, and we saw this coming to fruition. We saw this being fulfilled in front of our eyes. Alongside the government calling Ahmadis non-Muslims, we saw Ahmadiyyat flourish. We, in our negligence and ignorance, used to think, why would people come to Rabwa? How would people accept Ahmadiyyat? But all of these misunderstandings were removed. It was strange how Allah the Almighty instilled awe and grandeur in the Khalifa, and people were flocking towards Rabwa from different cities of Pakistan, from all corners of Pakistan. People were coming to meet the Khalifa. Every Thursday night, Huzur would meet those who came from outside, and Darul Ziyafat was always full of people. There were crowds of people just waiting to meet or see the Khalifa. Many people came to Rabwa. And it was very strange, and it's against all logic that Ahmadiyyat would flourish after the fact that Ahmadis are deemed as non-Muslims. Then Huzur started a scheme, and he said that Ahmadis from outside come from outside to attend Jalsa Salana, but now there will be a system. So now different nations or different groups should establish their own places of living in Rabwa when they come to stay, so that they can stay there in their respective areas. So many guest houses were being built and constructed, Ansar, Lajna, Khuddam, all constructed their own guest houses. Ansarullah has 3 guest houses in Pakistan, in Rabwa, and Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya has more than 2 as well. And all of those amenities that are available in respect to food and everything else are available in those guest houses. So when Huzur said that many people would come, we saw that with our own eyes. So in 1974, in the same year that this assembly took place and that Ahmadis were deemed as non-Muslims, we saw in the Jalsa Salana and we were wondering how many Ahmadis would come. And we were shocked to see that more people came from the previous years. I was at school at the time in grade 9 or 10, 8 or 9. So we were on break and we went to the bus stations and the train stations and we saw the sheer groups of people that were coming for Jalsa Salana. People were bringing their beds along with them. The Jamaat would provide a place to live and sleep. They would spread hay across the ground, and we would bring our bedding and spread the bedding over that hay and the straw. And it was very high. Buses were full and they were coming. Ahmadis carrying their beds, coming on carriages. A carriage is, as you know, a horse carriage. Now those carriages don't exist, but at that time we used to use carriages. So we as children used to see the stations and we would see special cars, designated vehicles coming to Rabwa. And there was just piles and piles of bedding and pillows in the stations of Rabwa. And it was so beautiful to see so many people coming together, and there was so much liveliness everywhere we saw. And people were announcing left and right. If somebody is from Lahore, they can come this way. If somebody is from this area, they can go this way, and so on and so forth. The residents of every city stayed together in different areas. And Allah the Almighty had told Hazrat Khalifatul Masih that anyone who disturbs your peace, anyone who disturbs you, we will, as in God will, deal with them. December 26, 27, 28 is when Jalsa Salana used to be held. And we thought that perhaps we could move up Eid or move back Eid, or move up Jalsa or move back Jalsa, because Eid on that year was also on the 25th of December. So it would be 25th would be Eid, and then 26th to 28th would be Jalsa Salana. So there were many things to consider. There were sacrifices that needed to take place. There were many animals that needed to be taken care of alongside the preparations for Jalsa Salana. But Hazur said that we will have Eid on the 25th and we will have Jalsa starting on the 26th. So people started to come to Rabwa a few days earlier. And many houses hosted guests for Eid as well. And this was a very beautiful, beautiful environment that was created in Pakistan in that year. So there people would sit together and refresh their memories about Jalsa. So now this year we see animals, we see goats everywhere, we see people coming together, we see families sitting together. It's such an amazing environment. So on the 25th, Eid was celebrated, Hazur delivered his sermon, and all Ahmadis had arrived on the 25th to celebrate Eid. And so it seemed that year that the Jalsa was 4 days, because Hazur delivered a sermon on the 25th for Eid, and then on on the 26th, 27th, and 28th for Jalsa. Now I want to mention how Allah the Almighty sees the enemies. This all happened in 1974. And there was Zulfikar Bhutto and his whole party, and now we see his grandson also in politics. So the way Allah the Almighty sees them, when they were the most popular and Ziaul Haq had taken over the government, there are very many details that I don't want to get into, but Ziaul Haq took over and had arrested Zulfikar Bhutto. In 77, Zulfikar Bhutto was arrested, and there was court cases lawsuits being filed, and at the end he was sentenced to death. At that time, some Ahmadis mentioned a revelation of the promised Messiah that said that a dog would die a dog's death. And every letter has a specific numerical value. So some people, they gathered the numerical value of that revelation. And some Ahmadis raised that the promised Messiah had this revelation, and this revelation is in respect to Bhutto. And he would be hung at the age of 51, 52. There were journalists at that time who also wrote in newspapers, and they asked Ziaul Haq that the Ahmadis are saying that at the age of 52, Bhutto would be hung. And this is in accordance with the revelation of the promised Messiah ﷺ. And they published this in newspapers. So the journalists and the people of Pakistan, they asked Ziaul Haq to change the time of his punishment to death. He changed the time of his punishment to death to either when he's 51 or 53, so that the revelation of the promised Messiah is now fulfilled. Many world leaders tried to save Bhutto from being executed, but it was the decree of Allah the Almighty that he would be killed. Despite all the efforts and despite the requests given to Ziaul Haq, Allah the Almighty fulfilled the revelation given to the third Khalifa and also the promised Messiah ﷺ, and Allah the Almighty killed Ziaul Haq, killed Bhutto at the age of 52. So this was a revelation this was news given to the promised Messiah so many years before that, and how it was fulfilled in the time of the third Khilafat. This incident took place in 1979. Bhutto was sentenced to death at the age of 52. And Hazrat Khalifatul Masih III said that God told me that he would destroy those who disturbed the Jamaat, who disturbed me, and he did. And he fulfilled his promise. And these were the inspirational events that we saw taking place before our eyes, and the blessings of Khilafat. Bhutto even tried to destroy the financial system of the Jamaat. And he also tried to nationalize the different schools that we had established. He put many restrictions on us. He did everything, but despite all of those things, Jamaat slowly trickled outside of Pakistan. And the enemies thought that they were doing a lot of damage, but they didn't realize that In doing so, they were allowing Ahmadiyya to spread across the world, in Canada, in America, in Europe, in Germany. The conditions that were worsening in Pakistan were actually improving the conditions of Ahmadiyyat outside. In Pakistan, we were very limited, and now look at how vast the community has become because of this. Imam Sahib also told me one thing, that in the time of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV, when he came to UK, the last Friday sermon that he led, Imam Sahib led, before Hazur had arrived in UK, there was only 8 people in the Friday prayer that I led in Masjid Fazl. This was the Friday sermon, Friday prayer before Hazur arrived to UK. And now we see the state of UK where Masjid Fazl would be full, and Baitul Futuh, which is the largest mosque in London, in UK actually, is filled, and Masjid Mubarak is now also filled as well. There were many people, many youth come to listen to Hazur, his Friday sermon, and they sit outside the mosque, even in the halls, and they gather to listen to the Friday sermon. Even though Hazur could just deliver the Friday sermon in his local area, however, it is our desire to hear Khilafat that he broadcasts his sermon. And so this is how, through Khilafat, Allah the Almighty takes us out of a state of fear into a state of peace and comfort. So this was the incident that I just mentioned about the hanging and the execution of Zulfikar Bhutto. Next, I want to talk about the Nobel Prize that was given to Dr. Abdul Salam. After receiving the Nobel Prize, he came to Rabwa. We saw him praying in Masjid Mubarak and walking around, and especially during the Jalsa Salana, he would be given a chance to give a short speech. You youth would not know about this, but the elders will know. On the second day, Hazur was delivering a speech for Jalsa. You know how the sequence in which Hazur speaks on Jalsa. So on the second day, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis stopped his khutbah, his address, and he called and he invited Dr. Abdul Salam to the stage to speak about his thoughts. Dr. Abdul Salam came to the stage, came to the podium, and he said this revelation of the promised Messiah, in which God Almighty said that I will elevate your followers in knowledge and in insight to the extent that they will take over the world through their knowledge. And Dr. Abdul Salam also recounted the prayers of Maulana Hazrat Ghulam Rasul Rajiki Sahib, who prayed with his father about him when he was a child. Then Hazur stood at the podium and he said that we don't need one Dr. Abdul Salam, we need 100 Abdul Salam. And in the next 100 years, we need 1,000 Dr. Abdul Salams. And Hazur said that I invite every child of the Jamaat to become a Dr. Abdul Salam. So Hazur then decreed that no Ahmadi child, will study less than the matriculation exam, which is the grade 10 level. And if any child needs financial support in their studies, then the Jamaat will provide that. the time of the second Khalifa, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II, there was a jalsa for the Khilafat Jubilee. So there was $300,000 or 300,000 rupees given to Huzur on that occasion. So Huzur said that I will not keep these funds for myself, but I will spend them for the education and training of the youth. And I want to spend a portion. I want to spend a portion for the education of the youth. And so from that amount, Dr. Abdul Salam was also given a prize for the marks he attained in grade 10 in the matriculation. And it was, that money that blessed him. And he was able to use that money to study further. And so this is how the money given to Dr. Abdul Salam by the second Khalifa was a part of his success as well. So as I was mentioning at that occasion, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis then announced a widespread scheme to help students study and to fund their expenses. Now I come to the end, and I want to speak about when I came to Jamia. So I just entered Jamia, and Huzur said that I would like to meet with the newcomers of Jamia and also those who are now going to graduate. And so he came to our classes and he met us all and he delivered a speech. That was the first speech that took place in the second and the first class that I had the opportunity of being part of. And he also was with the final class. In 1980, there was an ijtama that took place, and the 14th century was now ending according to the Islamic calendar, and the 15th century was starting. And on that occasion, on the 3 days of the ijtama, Huzur said that I would speak on all 3 days and that the Ansar should also attend the ijtama. And Huzur did very lively and passionate speeches on all 3, and there were many revelations, many prophecies that were made during those speeches that were later fulfilled. And he said that people like Hazrat Bilal would come into the community, would be born into this community, who would spread Islam the same way that he did, and he would stand up for Tawheed, for the unity of God. This is a very, very long chain of stories, and we can go on. And God willing, inshallah, I will share more stories in the future. Now, in accordance with the instruction of Huzur, of Khilafat, that you have come here to play sports, but our true purpose is actually to connect with Allah the Almighty, and that is the purpose of the Jamaat, and that is to connect us with God. And we must pray together, and after this speech, we will pray together in congregation, and we will connect to God through the Holy Quran as well. May Allah enable you and grant you the blessings that are connected with Khilafat, and may Allah enable you to connect with Khilafat in the true sense. Thank you to all of you for inviting me here. I enjoyed it very well, and I hope that you also enjoyed this. Now we will pray, and after that there's 5 minutes until congregational prayer. Please join me in silent prayer.